All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll get started since it just turned to be 4 o'clock. I'm going to start and then I will turn it over to you. So first and foremost, I wanted to discuss kind of where we're going as a district and the fact that we're so excited to have students back on campus and have them back on campus soon. I know that's a priority for our community, our staff, and our administrative team. For everyone that joined us this afternoon, thank you so much for being here. We're going to do the best we can to get through everyone's questions. We've put the plan on our website, and there are a few links on our Facebook page to get to the plan as well. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence by going through every single slide of the entire thing. I'm assuming everyone on here has read it, and this is really more of a question and answer forum for you to ask the various administrators in the district, and we will do the best we can to answer your questions. I in no way will have answers to everything, but we are taking notes and transcribing this meeting. We're also recording it. So if there is something that's asked that we do not have an answer for, you will get an answer as soon as we have it. Guidance is currently changing pretty regularly, so there may be things that change after this, which means we'll have another meeting to go over those changes with the community. First, our format for the meeting is going to be a brief introduction by me of the admin team and how we came to this plan. Then we'll turn it over and you can ask questions in the chat function of the Zoom meeting. We'd love to have everyone talk, but there'd be too many people talking over one another. So if you post your question in the chat, we then have our brand new high school principal, Mrs. Courtney Almeida. She will be reading through the questions and reading them aloud, and then a different administrator based on the area your question pertains to will answer. Our overall schedule for this coming school year, that's the biggest point that seems to be a piece that parents are interested in, is we're looking at 4 days of in-person instruction with staggered bus times Monday through Thursday. And then Friday would be a day of remote learning for students and a chance for us to deep clean the building. A lot of the information that's out there regarding COVID-19 shows that it can't live on a surface for more than 3 days. So the idea is by stacking our remote day onto the weekend, it allows us to have 3 days for anything that would be in the buildings to die, as well as the deep cleaning. So with that said, we received guidance that we were going to need a reopening plan before everything came out from the state and from the Department of Health. As soon as we received that guidance, the administrative team and the department heads met to go through all of the guidance and really dissect it as a team and figure out where we were headed. We knew we would need to have a reopening plan submitted to the state by July 31st, but we didn't know what that plan would need to include. We received guidance on what the plan would need to include about 9 days before we needed to turn it in. So we worked together as a team and got several stakeholder groups together. Thank you to anyone on this call that served in one of those groups. It was very quick turnaround and people dropped everything they were doing to come in and give us their feedback. We also put surveys out to the community to get their input into our reopening plan. So what we're going to talk about tonight and present to you is a working document. We're continuing to add to it. We also will be having it evolve over time, but it is a reflection of what the various work groups came up with, and we're trying to meet the needs of our community and our staff the best we absolutely can. After we dissected the guidance, it became very apparent that one person could not handle the entire plan. There was no way that someone could get down to the nitty-gritty details of specific PPE equipment for staff, all the way to a detail of what bus time would be the best for each student in our community. So we divided our plan. We followed BOCES model, but tweaked it to fit our small size and the fact that our administrative team is obviously much smaller than BOCES. And we divided our needs into 4 big rocks that we needed to discuss. The first of these was daily necessities, which was spearheaded by Jamie Rogers. Jamie, can you wave? Underneath daily necessities, she covered transportation, budget, and child nutrition. Those 3 modules, she met with various stakeholders to handle the work groups around those 3 modules. In the area of safety, Dave Davison, our interim high school principal, thank you, Dave. He took over the modules of schedules, pods, and cohorts, cleaning and disinfecting, facilities and social distancing, and containment plans. In the area of health and wellness, our brand new elementary principal, Mrs. Brandy Meacham. Brandy, can you wait? Thank you. She handled all of the modules that included health and wellness. So face covering and PPE, social and emotional well-being, health and safety, and chronic absenteeism fell under Brandy's big rock. In the area of instruction, we had Carrie Davenport. She handled trainings, certification and teaching, special and bilingual education, teaching and learning. And then I took relationships, communication and community fell under that, hiring and staffing, evaluations, and closure. My role was to meet with each of the department heads and administrators after they met with each work group. They then would meet with me and we would discuss what came out of that work group so that we could make sure we were establishing a cohesive plan. Obviously, if the schedules group came up with something that was very different than what our cleaning and disinfecting group came up with, those two things weren't going to match and we were going to end up with an issue on our slides. We are continuing to work with both unions to make sure that the plan that we have out there will be able to come to fruition. We're also watching the guidance daily. So that is the point we're at. The reason I explain all of that is tonight when you ask questions, we have the various administrators. When you type one in the chat, Courtney is going to read it aloud, and then I'll direct a question to whichever administrator, if they don't jump in themselves first, that it pertains to their area. We'll do the best we can to answer you, and there will always be time for follow-up questions. We also, my secretary is transcribing the whole thing, and we will be posting frequently asked questions on our website so people can review this later on. So with that said, if you have any questions, please start posting them in the chat. Oh, one more thing, sorry. We have our board president, Mr. Jeff Chase, on the line. Jeff, would you like to say hello?
Yes, hi. Thanks for all tuning in and hearing our plan. I appreciate it.
Courtney, whenever you're ready.
Okay, hi everyone. So the first question is, what will the school hours / bus times be for the students this year?
So in looking at the elementary school time, it's approximately the same as it was last year. We're looking for the drop-off of elementary students to begin around 7:50 and end around 8:30. And then we'll start loading at 2:30 until 3 o'clock during the dismissal to send them back home. Because of the social distancing on buses and following that, it's going to take us a little longer to unload our kids once they get here and get them back on the bus. We've also had to separate our elementary from middle school, high school bus runs, so the elementary students will be picked up first. Once they've been dropped off and the buses have been cleaned and disinfected, the buses will go back out to pick up the junior, senior high school kids. So we are looking for drop-off times around 9 o'clock for the junior, senior high school, and hoping to begin classes no later than 9:30. We'll be concluding our day around 1:30 to get the high school kids loaded back home, get the buses back, clean the buses, and then pick up the elementary students. So I don't know about the drop-off and pickup times for the buses at individual homes, but our start time for the elementaries is about the same as last year, and middle school, high school is on a condensed schedule.
I can talk to the bus pickup times. Right now, we're working on the routes based on the social distancing and the addresses that we are given to pick up and drop off our students. So as soon as we have those times available, we will be sending those out to families.
Thank you. This pertains again to pick up and drop off. So on the posted plan, the load times for the high school are listed as 9 to 9:30, and then load times are 1:30 to 2. On another slide, it says the high school will be inside from 9 to 1. How does that work?
Yeah, so that's all my bad in putting this together on there. That was my misunderstanding, and I did not catch the slide before it was put up, so my apologies. But the 9 to 9:30 for the drop-off of students and the 1:30 to 2 for the load is accurate.
Thank you, Dave. Why are the elementary kids going so much longer than the high school kids?
So I'll take that one. When we started to plan for remote versus in-person learning, a couple things were very apparent. First of all, remote learning works a lot better with high school students than elementary students. We got a lot more feedback from our high school students when we were forced to go remote in the spring. The second factor is we really want to be reflective of our community needs. And if we have elementary students at home that need an older brother or an older sister to watch them, we need the high school kids to be home the whole time the elementary students are at home. So by picking up the elementary first and dropping them off after, the hope is that if parents are relying on their older siblings for daycare, those kiddos will be home before their younger siblings are. We had to split the bus times and stagger our bus routes. We can't put all the kids on one bus because it wouldn't allow us to properly socially distance them when they're coming in and out. So that seemed like the most responsible way for our community to do that breakup on our buses.
Yeah. Do the elementary kids have to wear masks all day?
Brandy?
So our guidance does recommend that all students and all staff have masks on throughout the day. So what we did to help accommodate that was set that our students will have 10-minute mask breaks every 40 minutes. And that can be lengthened. So if the teacher's standing at the front of the room and teaching, and doing some direct instruction, then the students sitting at their desks 6 feet apart can have their mask off for as long as that teach piece takes. But when a student or when a teacher needs to walk around the classroom and check a student's work, masks need to be back on for the safety of everybody. So there will be many breaks throughout the day, and we will do everything we can to help students understand this need and to feel comfortable with it. But we do need to keep everybody safe.
Thank you. The next two questions I'm going to pair together because it deals with BOCES and out-of-district students with disabilities. So the first question, my child is from out of district for special education. How does this impact her? And then additionally, what is the plan with the junior and seniors that are supposed to be going to BOCES?
Okay, so I'm going to address the first part, and I'm going to say that if we have a student that's out of district that attends one of our programs on site, those schools we've been in communication with those schools so that they can provide transportation to our program. If your student is a Pine Valley student that is attending a program outside of our district, we are working with the transportation department to provide transportation, even if it's on a day that we might not be in person. So some area school districts might be attending school on Fridays, and we will make sure that those students are accommodated with that. For our students that are attending CTE programs or BOCES based programs, we have recently, just last week, had a meeting with BOCES to discuss what their plans are going to be and making sure that we can accommodate the transportation needs for those students as well. Dave might be able to speak more to that at the high school.
So with the BOCES students, BOCES is going with an AABB day. So Monday and Tuesday, the kids who are in the A cohort would go to BOCES. Wednesday would be their day for remote learning. And then on Thursday and Friday, the students who are in the B cohort would attend. We are seeking to get into the B cohort just to make sure transportation-wise we can do everything we can to get our students to BOCES and let them have a full day of learning at BOCES. So right now, our BOCES students, I have not heard back otherwise. We are planning on them going to BOCES on Thursday and Friday for full, for their learning experience, and they will be here in district Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, taking care of their coursework here.
Thank you. The next question, will we be able to send lunch in with our kiddos, or will they be provided with lunch, snacks, etc.?
Mrs. Rogers?
So we are providing breakfast and lunch for our students. They are able to eat those meals here in school. You will also be able to send in lunch or breakfast with your child to eat here as well. So nothing's changed there. It's just they will be eating in their classroom as a cohort as opposed to going and eating in the cafeteria.
Thank you.
We do, I just want to throw in there, we do encourage that if you are buying school meals, that you use our online platform to pay for those meals so that we are limiting the money exchange.
Thank
And
you.
if you're going to send a lunch for your child, we just ask that that lunch come in the morning with your child so that we don't have any additional visitors to the building.
Wonderful. Next question, why is there no remote/hybrid option for learning outside of quote unquote, if needed? Is there any planned option for parents who are not comfortable with sending their child to school 4 full days a week with the restrictions in place outside of pulling their children in homeschooling?
I'll take this one. Currently, our staff, we're obviously a small school. We have 2 teachers per grade level. So to offer a full remote to as many families as may take that option, we would have to drastically change our model we're going out with for the community. We didn't have enough people to go 50-50 and have half of our staff doing remote and half doing in person. We'd have too many kids here to provide social distancing. Already we have grade levels that will need to shift some teachers around in order to incorporate 3 sections for proper social distancing. So we really need to utilize our entire staff in-house. We will have some remote learning coordinators that will be working with each teacher. So if a student has to go out and be tested and will be out for 14 days, they're still getting the learning delivered to them, and we can take care of a small group of students in that way, but we just aren't equipped. We don't have enough staffing to handle a full remote option. Now, that said, we are waiting to see if the governor guidance is changing daily. So the governor could come out and tell us that we need to provide that. And if he does, we'll adapt and we'll pivot to make sure that we can do that in some way. It will most likely impact our 4 days on, 1 day off model that we're currently able to offer if that were to happen.
Thank you. Next question. I have 3 children in 3 different grades, 6, kindergarten, and UPK. How will we be able to do remote learning for all 3 kids on Fridays?
That's a good question. Right now, our Friday remote learning plan in the elementary school is paper-based. And so you should be able to work with your children just basically on maintaining their time and attention, and the work should be work that they can do at home somewhat independently. You know, all students learn differently and may need a little bit of assistance, but we're not sending home things that you should feel like you have to be a full-time teacher working with your children at home. And when those papers come back on Monday, that will count as the student's attendance as well.
Brandy, if I'm correct too, we're planning on having our staff being available at least one point in the day so that if families need to reach out with questions during the remote day, they can. Right?
Absolutely. We will still be here and available for assistance. I think we're planning some office hours so they'll know when you can contact different teachers.
Brina, I think this is going back to just some more information around the remote. But are we providing remote learning for the high school, right? Just not the elementary?
So I'm going to start this one and then bounce it to Dave so he can give more specifics. So with the high school, there will be more of a digital component to the remote learning. We are doing the print-based, but obviously some classes will be offered on more of a digital platform. High school is going to be our first step down that road. Dave, do you want to give specifics about the start and the end of the day and the different electives?
Yeah, so I think one of the great things is that when you have a tremendous challenge, it also creates a great number of opportunities. And looking at whether it's flipped classrooms, which is where the teacher pre-records the instructional component of it, and the student goes through on their laptop, watches that, and then does the required classroom work and comes back in and works with the teacher. We have a number of opportunities to do that, but I wouldn't necessarily consider it remote learning because it'll be while the kids are here in school, they will be downloading the content to take with them for their remote day on Friday.
Thank you. If 8th graders are in a cohort, will they still be allowed to participate in advanced math and accelerated science? How about the high schoolers who are in AP courses, JCC courses, or advanced courses? Will they lose these opportunities?
So that's, again, going with the challenges and opportunities. Generally, a schedule takes about 3 to 4 months to build. We've had about 3 weeks to build this one. So I have to give a lot of kudos to our staff who've been putting it together. The focus and goal of building the schedule was to, one, make sure that all of our kids who are graduating had that opportunity to go down the various career paths that they had, and also to make sure that we can offer as many electives as possible, and that includes our AP courses and JCC courses. And while the schedule is not completely done at this point, I think we've been successful in being able to offer as many opportunities as possible. And we are still tweaking with it, the schedule, to try and make sure that everything that we can possibly give to our students is in there.
Thank you. How do we expect young kids to keep masks on, such as pre-K and kindergarten?
Yeah, we hear you. It's not going to be easy, but we have to, the guidance shows that we have to have students with masks on. There's also the side of we have to protect our staff and our teachers. So the plan right now, which please realize this is going to be something that evolves, is the mask breaks, teachers teaching students how to do this effectively, how to give them breaks, how to have time where they're outside and give them that variety where they're 6 feet apart, they can take their masks off, the teachers policing it, making sure that we're maintaining social distance. And as I'm taking this one, I'm realizing I should have deferred to the elementary principal because I'm totally stepping on her toes. So Brandy, go ahead.
No problem. Our youngest learners, we know they're going to struggle. We're also going to have some students with some sensory issues that it just takes time and patience to help them get used to it, just like with anything else that we work with students in the classroom, right? So we know for our safety why they need to do that and for their safety as well. And so we'll train them. That's just what we do in the education world. I see that the further part of that question is pertaining to playtime. There'll still be some playtime in our day. It might be a little bit more parallel play and independent play. And there'll be a schedule for students to go outside. There'll be time on the playground still. There'll still be physical education. So we still have those things in our day that, you know, give students a movement break and help them to love school and get them socially interacting with their friends. We just still need to be able to say, we gotta stay, keep that distance. We can't necessarily touch our friends. But 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, they're so adaptable and they will just do what's asked of them for the most part because we're going to teach them and they'll understand. And it's just a new normal for now. We'll get there.
Question along with the mask. If we choose not to send our kids to school due to having to wear masks all day, are we on our own with homeschooling or will the school help, such as last year?
So this is the guidance that may change. So please don't hold me to this, but right now you would be on your own. Right now, if you refuse to send children to school, you would need to apply to homeschool your children. If something changes where the governor comes out with an executive order or some sort of guidance that says we have to provide remote for parents that are uncomfortable, we will shift as a school and adapt. But again, that will impact the plan we're currently offering.
How many students will be in each classroom in the elementary school? And then kind of to piggyback off that, another question says, my son had over 20 kids in the elementary class last year. He will be in 6th grade this year. How are those class sizes being separated? Are there still going to be over 20 kids in his class? If there are additional sections, are they being staffed with teachers?
Brandy?
We are following all the guidance for the 6 feet social distancing. And actually some of the guidance says we can do a little bit less than that. We could do 4 by 5, but then our students need to be 6 feet to eat their lunch. So we're just gonna go strict the 6 feet distancing, which means that in some of our classrooms, we can have up to 16 students. So that would be our max class size as far as right now. If we have more than 32 students in a grade level, we will open up a third section. That third section will be staffed by a certified teacher. We want to do everything we can to make sure this is a successful educational year for all of our students. Did I get all parts of that question? We will work with the teachers either from the previous grade level or that are going into that grade level to help us identify how to break those class lists into new lists. And we'll notify families who the teachers will be as soon as we have that finalized.
Okay. The next one are a few comments, and so I'm going to read the comments so then we can address them appropriately. It seems concerning that we acknowledge the hardships in social distancing correctly, which makes me more nervous that our children's safety, as much as you are trying to ensure it, may not be adequately considered. I understand the unique situation that we are in as a small district, but it seems to make sense that elementary school should be the first place where remote learning is considered. As a mom of a kindergarten, I just cannot see these children wearing a mask and staying 6 feet apart all day. And then a separate comment, it just seems that we're expecting a lot more from the elementary children compared to the older children in the high school.
I'll start with that one and then pivot to the different administrators. So just a few points. I understand that this is going to be difficult. We have this conversation constantly in district that we really need to figure out how to make this the best we can for kids. I have a son who's in kindergarten, and I in no way am looking forward to that child sitting in a classroom all day long with a mask on. I think it's going to be a nightmare and a fight with him. But then I know he'll learn and adapt, and kids are resilient, and we have teachers that will be trained and know how to take this really seriously, because first and foremost, as much as I don't want him in a mask, I also want to protect him and protect everybody else. And I know that the best place for him is in school, learning from his teacher, connecting with his peers, even if it's at 6 feet apart. My biggest concern for our kids in this district is that if we offered remote, not only was it more effective the first time for high school because they're a little bit older and can work with the tools, but there's also the component of, in this district, Carrie, Ms. Davenport and I have been smashing our head against the wall in meetings because we keep saying, well, 31% of our district can't get internet. And then we'll have our colleagues look at us in other districts and say, well, get families a MiFi, do this. And she and I go, no. We literally cannot get families internet. It's not possible. They can't get the service there. We've taken our tech team, and not many people know this, and it sounds insane. So I'm just going to share it so you know the extent we went to. They got in a van and drove the district with 3 different cell phone carriers, phones, because they did not believe the cell phone companies that we could not get internet out there. We have taken exhaustive measures to try to improve this as a district, but with 31% unable to do that, at least our high school kids, number one, we can bring them in on a bus earlier if we really needed to, or keep them later and put them in the odd socially distanced, or come up with solutions in that way. Number two, a lot of them can drive and will be able to move to a spot with Wi-Fi and other remote access. Our elementary kids don't have that capability. So for us to not try and to not do everything we can to bring kids in, we know it's going to be a lot. It's going to be taxing on our teachers. It's going to be taxing on our cleaning staff, but it's really what our parents asked for in the survey and what's best for our kids. Brandy, do you want to jump onto that?
I just agree with everything that you've said. Our younger students really can't manage their time and their schedule and their learning on their own. And the last time we shut down, we were basically shutting down the entire state. So families were home together. I was home with my kids helping teach them. That's not the case this time. Most of our families have gone back to work, and our students would be sitting at home independently trying to learn, which isn't the best case scenario for our families or our students or our building. So we want our younger students here because we know that we can assist that way. So we're doing everything we can to take the safety of everybody very seriously, but also the mental health of our students, because they need to see their friends, they need to see their teachers and know that they're cared for, and they need routine back.
I'm going to jump in one more time because I just saw a comment and it pertains to what we're talking about right now. When we are talking about reopening school, please know that we're not looking at it as our September is going to look the same way as it did in the past in any way, shape, or form. So not only will kids have masks on, but they're babies. All of our administrators, with respect to Mrs. Rogers, because she's in a slightly different field, were teachers. I taught elementary school. Brandy taught, Miss Meacham taught elementary school. We understand the hurdles we're going to have here. So we're planning things to try to work with these babies to take care of them during the day. Social emotional learning is going to take place. We're encouraging teachers to get them outside as much as possible. They're going to have scheduled playground breaks. So we are doing everything we can here. And the guidance our teachers were given is that every 40 minutes, children have a minimum of a 10-minute mask break every 40 minutes. So if a teacher has students socially distanced and they're 6 feet apart and they're completely safe, which is what the guidance tells us, they will be completely safe if they're 6 feet apart and they're not sharing things, they'll have their masks off. And our elementary teachers are going to be trained, and we're going to be talking to them, and we're going to be going into classrooms to assist them in that. So I know that it is a scary world to be a parent thinking I'm sending my kid to have this face covering all day long. We're all feeling it. Jamie has a child in kindergarten as well. And we get it. We're going to get into it, and we're going to try to adapt, and we're going to do what's best for kids every single day. And that includes keeping them safe and taking care of them in a social and emotional way. And having a mask on a kid all day long for 8 hours a day is not taking care of them. So we're working on creative solutions to help ease that. I'm sorry, you kind of got us on a soapbox with that one because it's been one of our biggest concerns.
A clear-cut question would be, is there an expected start date for school this year?
Jamie, you want to take this one?
So our first day of school is expected to be on Tuesday, the 8th.
Can you describe a high school day for me? I am assuming there will not be classroom/period changes.
Okay, so I guess it looks a little bit different depending on what grade level, but for starting with 7 and 8, we are going with an A-B schedule. So on day A, as an example, 7th graders would be in their core classes, ELA, math, social studies, and science, and the 8th graders would be in their elective classes. The next day, they would flip-flop because our teachers cross over. The 8th graders would be in their core classes, and the 7th graders would be taking electives. And that instruction will be delivered to the cohort classroom for each group. So essentially, the teachers will be switching around. With 9th and 10th graders, again, it's an A-B schedule with the core. And while one group is in the core, the 9th graders, the other group will be in electives. A little different, we are Zooming because as the kids get older and progress towards their college and career choices, and they go along different pathways to graduation, and we're still trying to meet all of their needs to get them there and offer all the electives that they like. We are going to be doing instructionally, may not always be in person. Some of it may be Zoomed, kind of like we're doing now, and rotating the instructor around. So they may be with one group on one day, and the next time they will be in a different classroom to do that. With our juniors and seniors, a lot of it is a flipped classroom, as we discussed earlier at this meeting, where the teachers kind of pre-record the lessons and the kids work on them at home or on their own, and then come back in. So with the juniors and seniors, we thought it was critical, especially in the core classes, that they have access to their teachers. So they are set up in a common area where there won't be any movement. They'll come in, that'll be their seat, but their math teacher, their advanced placement history teacher, their ELA teacher, their science teachers will be there to work with the kids and check on their progress and answer any questions that they have. And the same thing, we're trying to get electives to a student who is in 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade are all taking the same elective. And yet we're trying to protect our kids with our cohorts and minimize movement. So some electives will be offered, actually most electives will probably be offered via Zoom to provide those opportunities for our kids and yet do everything that we can to maintain the safety. we're looking at the end of the day to have an office period where kids can do work. They can hop into Zoom sessions. So their history teacher may have an open Zoom office. The students can climb on, hop into that Zoom, ask the teacher some questions, have some conversation with them, and then back out and do their work. So I know it's not the best world, but I think we're offering our kids a lot of opportunities.
One question, can we talk a little bit about physical education? Will it be offered?
Sure. So will there be gym class? Yes. Depending upon the grade level, it may look a little different. But again, with gym and social distancing, instead of the 6 feet of social distancing in gym classes, you need 12 feet. So once you go into the gym and you start working out those numbers, creating 12 feet of social distancing, it limits exactly how many kids you can have in there participating in PE. So some of it may be classroom instruction on health and fitness, but we also realize that kids, whether they're elementary or middle school, high school, need to get up and move around some. So, we're encouraging classrooms to, if they can, take their kids out safely for a walk, but we will be offering gym class in both the elementary and middle school, high school.
This, again, with schedule, what happens with an 8th grader who has 9th grade math and 10th grade science? Will they be able to take 8th grade core English and social studies and then move to other cohorts? Same with a 10th grader taking 11th grade science.
Okay, so I think I kind of addressed that one a little bit about being able to Zoom some of our science classes and this and that. We are looking to provide all the opportunities we can for all of our kids. I wish, Kim, I had a better answer for you at this point, but we do realize we have multiple kids, whether it's an AP course or something from different grade levels, and trying to provide those opportunities via Zoom to them.
Thank you. In returning to school, what about kids that are asthmatic?
So we recognize that there are vulnerable populations that are going to be more at risk, and we need to take that seriously. Asthmatic students actually aren't considered high risk. They are a risk category, but it's a lower risk category. And so they are still safe to come to the schools and maintain social distancing and have masks on. They can still get their treatments here at school. We have the nurses on staff still. So we'll do everything we can, and they may need additional mask breaks, and we can take care of their needs as they arise as well. But they're still safe to come to schools with the precautions we put in place.
Thank you. This is somewhat of a comment. I understand that 31% of the district cannot get internet, but there should be an option for parents who do have access to the service and have the option to work from home and work with their children to learn remotely / hybrid. There's no one correct way to approach this, but I just cannot wrap my mind around why I would see less options in learning instead of more outside of lack of teachers.
So this is there are so many pieces to this that, listen, I am all about offering everything we can offer, but not only do we have enough teachers, so we'd have to hire to be able to do a full remote option, which we can't do. We still don't have our state aid runs and are looking at possibly a deficit this coming year. And my number one goal is to make sure we keep the school afloat. I can promise you anything, but if we have no money, we can't do anything. So I have to take into consideration the financial piece of this. But then so that takes us to our current staff. If we decided to offer remote, we have so many hurdles to get over with that. That's why I say if the governor comes out with that this is mandatory, we will need to pivot and change from our 4-day, 1-day option. If we were to pivot and change from that now to accommodate this, we would be taking every parent in the districts that, according to our survey, it was over 80% wanted in-person learning, and saying now you need to find daycare or something else for your children during the day while you're at work. The reason we would have to pivot from our 4-day, 1-day is, well, there are a few pieces to that. First, it's a union issue. Some districts out there that are smaller are offering remote learning, and they're doing that with in-person learning, and they're doing it through something called synchronous learning, which means they're putting a camera in the classroom and the teacher would teach maybe 4 kids in front of them and 4 kids through a Zoom session. So the kids are at home. Most unions are completely opposing that. It's not just our union. There are so many issues that come through with that, because say your child, little Johnny, is in the classroom and he's struggling. Every other parent that could be walking through their dining room is going to see that little Johnny is struggling in that type of model and be talking about them out in the community. So you get into privacy issues with something like that. Our teachers are also opposed to it because it opens them up to having parents jumping in on their classes, talking the entire time they're trying to teach, and it makes it so it's much harder to perform that instruction. So I know there are other districts that are going that way. That's not somewhere that that's not somewhere we're able to go at this time. Also, with the lack of internet in parts of our district. So I'm giving you all of this because I can tell this is a hot button issue, and I want to make sure that you understand that we are open to ideas and we are open to trying to offer as much as we can. But with internet not provided in parts of our district, we can't say to families, listen, you live here, so you don't get the option to keep your kids home and offer them remote. They have to be coming into school. We can't offer that to you because of where you live. So that means we would have to go to a totally print-based curriculum for those kiddos if we can't find some way to provide, in order to provide an equitable instruction to everyone, which means we're then doing print-based for our entire elementary school. And I will tell you, we saw how that happened in the spring, and there are a lot of districts that went out and went, oh, we did a great job. I am not one of those. We did the best we could in a very quick turnaround, and our staff worked their butts off, but in no way was it the same level of instruction. And part of why I came to Pine Valley, to be perfectly honest, is we have an issue with student achievement at Pine Valley that we are working very hard on. And we really want our students to graduate readers and really proficient in math and help set them up for whatever they want to do. So if we now go backwards and we provide print-based instruction solely, it might work for some families. It's not going to work for all of them. And I'm going to be robbing the 4-day, 1-day system. So there are so many pieces that it would really be a detriment to our kids. That's why we went out with this. Those are the different pieces we've thought about. I would love to offer synchronous instruction if it weren't for all those other factors. I would love to offer remote instruction on a digital platform if that were possible. I will tell you that if the governor comes out with something that says we have to, you're going to see us as a district pivot, and we'll be able to throw a little more support behind it financially because we'll have to do it. And that would be, you're going to see things like a Pine Valley Geek Squad coming out and picking up devices and driving them to a place where we can have downloads. And we just don't have the staff to do that right now, though, and offer 4-to-1. I hope that answered your questions and at least let you see that we really have explored this and we want to be able to do this. I see that the high school teachers and the elementary students, please remember the high school students will be coming in 4 days in one. So it makes it different because those high school kids are still on campus, so they can download everything. They can get everything that's there. If we go campus wide to offering a remote and an in-person, we don't have the staff to be able to do 4 days in one. That's the difference there.
Can I jump in and add a couple of bit?
Please do.
So with the utilization of Zoom on campus, it's one thing to use the technology to ensure that 2 different classrooms side by side are getting the same content. It's a very different level when we're trying to push out that content to the community. And Brina mentioned the equity piece, and we have to attest that we are ensuring that all students have equal access to their learning, regardless of a whole variety of circumstances, geographic location, internet availability being a couple of those. So in order to do that, we have to look at what can we do that's in the best interest of all of those students, and to offer electives and use a flipped classroom model where students are looking at pre-recorded content and then engaging it with support from the teacher on campus, where we know they have internet that's secure and able to be streaming, is a very different setting than the hit or miss opportunities of internet that we saw last spring. And that leads us to really try and really hone in on how can we get everybody what they need. And then the high school students using that flipped model to get all of the electives and to differentiate who gets what is an advantage, right? It doesn't mean that everyone gets the same 4 classes. It allows us to really personalize that learning in the different interests and paths of students.
Thank you. A question going back to kind of a statement for 6 feet apart. A comment, I am also super uncomfortable with the statement that they will be completely safe. If they are 6 feet apart, the risk is far less, but there's nowhere near enough research to say that they will be completely safe. This seems very short-sighted.
So I hear you. That is above my head though. That is a state issue. That is guidance from the health department. That is guidance from New York State Ed. We have to follow that. I am in no way a doctor that can change that. That's the guidance we got. So that's the guidance we have to follow. So it might be short-sighted, but that would be you're going to have to appeal to someone way higher up and way bigger pay grade than me.
Are all children going to have to wear their masks off at the same time? If so, how are they protected from sneezing, coughing, and just natural spray from talking?
One of the additional things that we're doing is making sure that all desks and seats are facing the same direction. So that will also help with safety from other things in the air. Students in one class probably will have their masks off at the same time so that the teachers can track when those breaks are occurring and the time that we're recommending. But we're doing a number of other things, including individualized materials, looking at our ventilation systems, opening windows when the weather's nice. We're assigning bathrooms for different grade levels and students and cleaning in between them. So it's a lot more that's going into our day to keep students and staff safe than just that, relying on just 6 feet of distancing.
Will 5th and 6th graders continue to get band and chorus?
So the guidance for band and chorus requires more like physical education, the 12 feet of distancing. And with all of the requirements that we need to have in place and separating our classes throughout the building, we are finding it difficult to find additional spaces for students. So we're hoping to adjust our schedules and to find ways to get band and chorus incorporated. It may not be immediately at the beginning of the school year. Those band and chorus, those are still questions that we are seeking to find answers and ways to make it work out. And we're working with everybody that we can to adjust that. Dave, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think we all realize how important music is in everyone's lives, and are working on, especially through the electives, to find creative ways to get music to our students. And as Brandy had stated, that the 12 feet with the number of kids who are in band and chorus proves a challenge for us, but we are working on creative ways to get it done.
Next question. I have a child in special education that will be going to the high school this year. What days and times will he go? Will he ride the same bus as his siblings that are in high school?
So depending on what services the students receive will depend on what bus they might ride. Right now, we haven't finalized the transportation list to determine what buses students will be on. So depending on your particular student and their placement would depend on that ride. So some of our multi-age classrooms might have a longer day so they can get their services and accommodations on site versus, remote. But that's all things that we're still kind of working through.
Twofold. When will we find out who our kids' teachers are so we can know school supplies? And then in addition to school supplies question, what will be extra required supplies for students for parents to provide?
So at the middle school, high school, we are working and hoping to have our schedule finalized early next week, and then reach out to teachers and let them know and divvy up the students according to their cohorts. So well, I can't necessarily promise you it would be next week, but it will be in the near future when you'll know who your kids' teachers are. And in regards to school supplies, anything additional we will post, but certainly nothing in terms of wipes or hand sanitizer of that nature, we are required to supply all that.
The elementary is in a similar situation. We're hoping next week to be able to finalize the schedule and discuss with teachers assignments, and to be able to finalize those class lists. There are many people that need to help in those decisions, so we want to make sure that everybody is included in the discussion before we send those out to families. But again, we will not be asking for sanitizer or anything like that. Student face masks are something to add to your shopping list, though.
You. I understand remote learning will be limited, but what about students at high risk and families with high risk family members? Can you accommodate for this?
Carrie, that's all you.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yes, of course. I understand remote learning will be limited, but what about students at high risk and families with high risk family members? Can you accommodate for this?
Yeah, so students who would need medical accommodations such as that, or in vulnerable populations, that would be handled through our 504 process. It is outlined in our plan. You would begin by contacting your student's principal, and they will help guide you through that process.
Thank you. If we choose not to send our kids, why couldn't the teachers print off work such as last year? I'd be willing to pick up the work every day. More of a thought than I.
So for us, that's basically us providing a homeschooling curriculum. That's us providing the remote option. If we ask staff members to provide a remote option for any child that wants it, that's not something that we can do. We're asking them to do 2 jobs at once. That's going to end up being a union issue. Our teachers have to be, if they're doing in person, it would need to be someone else that's doing the remote instruction. That's why it takes added bodies. The reason it works at the high school is because they have a shortened day. So we're not offering an option of remote learning at the high school. We're offering that the beginning of the day and the end of the day, there will be some remote work done there. It's not going to be teachers doing 2 jobs at once of being a remote instructor and an in-class instructor at the same time. There are a lot more pieces to that, where part of our duty as a teacher is if a child has a 504 or an IEP, they get accommodations like that. The teacher has to pivot and provide those accommodations to families. So the way Carrie just said, where we can make accommodations for students that are a vulnerable population, that's a totally different situation than asking a teacher to provide work to 15 students in their classroom. And we'd have no way to police it. We can't say, oh, we hit the cap. That's how many remote we can allow. So we have to pick one or the other. And honestly, we're a small staff. That's why we surveyed the community and it was overwhelmingly in person. That's why we went this direction.
Thank you. Will the pool be open, and what has been decided on sports?
So as of right now, this is not a school decision, but interscholastic sports are canceled as of right now. That could change. When the school calendar comes out, you're going to see all of the events that are normally on the calendar have been taken off. We debated leaving them and then canceling one at a time, but everything's been pretty much canceled for now. So we will add them back in as we're able to host more events. And the pool being open, we just discussed this, and Jamie, I don't remember, was it you that I talked to about this? Who did the pool? Dave? Here, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to get back to you with that answer unless one of the administrators remembers the discussion.
Yeah, we talked about the guidance on outside visitors regarding pool use is what we focused the conversation on. But right now, the guidance does not allow for locker room use with our students. So therefore, because we can't offer the locker rooms as a changing area to use the pool, we then can't obviously have the pool open for student use. So that's, once guidance changes, we're hoping to kind of, as the guidance evolves and allows us to do more and open more, that we're going to be quick to kind of change these decisions as we're able to.
That's actually one more point I'd like to make for the families that are debating the homeschooling or the in-person instruction. This is something I've been saying to staff and teachers and our admin team over and over again. When I said that this is a working document and things are constantly changing, part of that is that by the time school opens, this 4-day, 1-day could change. Transportation could change. We could get new guidance. We could be told, you know what, the infection rate in New York State went up and we can't open at all. We could be told we have to offer remote. I don't know what will come tomorrow in regard to that. So all we can do is plan right now. And the way we're looking at this is not that we're telling you this is our plan for September to June. It probably isn't. We're looking at this as, let's try to get into the school year. What's our first 10 weeks going to look like? So with the pool, Carrie made an excellent point about as guidance loosens up, we're going to adapt and adapt quickly. My phone has been blowing up today about adult basketball, believe it or not. And I'm going, whoa, I'm not even thinking about that yet. So we want people back in our buildings. And as soon as we can in a safe way, and the state tells us we're allowed to, we'll open things like the pool up for community use and for student use. But student safety and students in our building comes first. So we have to keep as much kind of locked down as possible right now to service our kids the best we can.
Thank you. At this point, we are all caught up on questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Zelmita, for moderating. Thank you. Thank you to all of the administrators on the line, and families, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you have follow-up questions, we will be hosting another one of these at 6:30 and another one on, Carrie, help me with the date because I've messed it up twice today.
The 20th, Thursday, the 20th at 1 p.m.
Oh, and we do have, sorry, there's actually 2 more questions that just rolled in. If there's another peak in COVID cases, are the intentions to follow the same as March?
That's my assumption, but again, we'll follow. As far as remote goes, Carrie's shaking her head no and going, no, don't say that. Our remote option will look different, but as far as the closing and the way that rolled out, very possible that will happen again. We are prepping teachers on our Fridays to be able to provide remote. We're going to continue to plan. When I said to you that we would be mobilizing a team to get internet to those families that don't have internet by like picking them up or getting the devices, we're going to be planning all that on Fridays. And Courtney, just in the interest of time, I'll do the last one. So all sports are canceled. What about football? As of right now, football is canceled and coaches have not been appointed. As soon as that changes on a state level, we will change and adapt because we want our kids playing sports as soon as possible in a safe way, you know? So thank you so much all for tuning in. I'm sorry we don't have all the answers. I'm sorry we cannot accommodate remote right now. We are going to do the best we can and we are working on it. It's possible that we will come out in 2 weeks and say, we can do this. Just, I'm telling you where we're at right now. And this is our plan for right now. The only thing I can tell you with complete and total certainty is I will be transparent with you, give you information as we have it, and we will adapt and do whatever we can that's the best for our kids. You have my word on that. We really want kids back in school, but in the meantime, we want to accommodate our families. This time hasn't been easy for anybody. So if you have any questions, feel free to call me. You can email me. You can reach out to any of the administrators. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.